what I would like to show you now is intelligent identity and access management together with my colleague Raghu. And I would like to talk about this topic and make it a little bit more like a discussion with Raghu we had over the last month, I would say. So similar like Donna, you were discussing it with your team, we were discussing it in the last months, and we have decided we come here and show you our discussion on stage.
Yeah, it's a debate more than a discussion.
Yes, it's more a debate. Okay, intelligent identity and access management. We thought it would be a good title for a presentation on the digital identity in 5 years or whatsoever. But then, after a lot of our debates, we said, no, what we don't want to have is intelligent IAM. We just want to have a good identity and access management, also in 5 years, in 10 years. What says also, what you have seen in the last years, and you all know that, is that the incidents related to identity and access management are increasing. If you see this one from 2013, malicious code was one of the largest ones, and unauthorized access was somewhere. But this has increased just in 1 year. So you all know that. It's becoming more and more important. And why is this the case? Just a little bit a confusing picture, and Donna has started with this discussion. We are getting more and more of everyone and everything, devices, things, and connections to a lot of other people, organization, services, everything around us. But what's still true is we want to protect the assets of an organization or of a person. This is still true. And identity and access management should work on that. But in what we also see, and I think you know that in many organizations, that there are some opposing forces, as you always call it, Raghu. The IT on the one side and the business on the other side. And I think your experience is also that the line of business is moving much faster than the IT would like to have them. But this is reality. And what we want to have, Raghu, is an identity and access management which is able to deal with that. But what can we do with that? As I started to say, the old boundaries between in and out, external, interns, everything is connected to everything. Our world, our electronic digital world has changed dramatically in the last 5 years, and identity and access management hasn't got along with that. So what do we need? And I think Donna had made a very good point in saying about the policies and the framework. And I have found, I would say, from a digital area, a very old citation from Bill Gates and his chief research officer from 2007, where he said, or they said, also in a panel discussion, they said, you should do security by policy, not topology. And this is exactly the approach we need, by policy and not doing boundaries like we had them before. And so this means now identity and digital identity and views on digital identity in several contexts, as Donna has mentioned it too, is now becoming the new parameter for security. So what does identity and access management mean in this context with all these devices? We have put together a little bit some definition, but besides the definition, it is, I would say from the basic, it's meant to let the good guys in, do them the right things at the right time and for the right reasons in the right context, as we had it before. And these includes more than person, it includes all these things, and also the, as I said, the relationships, the connected things. And what does, now I use the word again, intelligence mean in this context? What is intelligence? How would you define that? Raghu, what's your opinion on that? What is intelligence?
I think intelligence is information.
Very good, Raghu. So, information to get to the objectives in that definition. What does this mean? You need information so you can decide whether you have the right guy, the right device connected with you, whether it is that one. But what did we see in the last, I would say 15 years? I am now for 15 years or so in identity and access management, and for 30 years in security. I haven't seen the beginning at the DES started, but in 1985 at one of the first Eurocrypts or so, I started with these topics. What did we see in these decades? We had so really great expectations, but after more than a decade, 15 years of development and integration, identity and access management continues to disappoint. We haven't reached our goals so far. We haven't seen identity and access management which is usable for people, which is working without too much knowledge for the people also maintaining it. We have understood what we want to have. This is what I have put up in the slide before. But we still have the problems that we do not have this holistic view on that. Donna mentioned this word exactly, holistic. We haven't that. So how can we get from our previous views, our previous disconnected IAM solutions to a more holistic view, and perhaps even to a more distributed view in the sense of intelligence? Leave it with the digital identity. So I would say we are now ready for disruption, but disruption in a very positive sense of disruptive thinking out of the box and how we can get to a solution there. Raghu, do you have any ideas on that?
Yeah, so disruption is positive disruption. Not like the disruption that Angelica had with Lufthansa. So I just want to paint the picture first. What I want to do is define these large things that you want in an identity and access management system. We've all been striving to do that for years. And we put that down on paper and we say we got to 20% of that or 15% of that. So there's been a lot of development in technologies and in processes and so much in politics. So, but there hasn't been an innovative idea that can cohesively bring all these together to make it easy for us, which is what I want to discuss today. So I mean, you can add to this list, right? So this list is, in my opinion, pretty hard, So if you see one of those things, there is no passwords. That would be a beautiful world, So, you have a nice way to authenticate a person or a device without a password, that would be nice. The other thing that gets into a little more of the enterprise and the enterprise pain points is continuous compliance. So compliance is a painful process, right? So we go through that every year, and then we spend money, and then we do the break fixes through the year and wait for the next year's compliance. Wouldn't it be nice to have continuous compliance? You're always complying. The other one is monitor. I would say better than monitor is manage risk. And Donna talked about it, right? So we have to talk about risk in identity and access management. How do you actually even visualize that, right? So it's such a difficult problem. She's right, So we want to have a way to manage this risk. So that's the other aspect, I would say. So what I did, okay.
Sorry,
yeah.
And what did we do in the last 15 years? Identity and access management?
Yes.
As the first wave, or how would you call that?
Administration.
Administration.
So yeah, we had a painful thing, and we said let's centralize it. Let's do identity and access management centralized, in a centralized way, right? So that was wave one. That was beautiful, because people were doing everything in their systems and applications, and all of a sudden you had a better view and a better way to manage. So that was the first wave. So the next wave was, access governance. Now I see this, in fact, Gartner dropped identity management in its magic quadrant and just has IGA, right? So which is identity governance and administration. So, we've gone to access. We've embraced access governance really well. Now, access governance basically addresses one of the hairy goals that we described, continuous compliance. But do we do continuous compliance? Nobody does continuous compliance. So, I think it's there, but not done. So this is getting into the third wave. And now we're stretching that from an IBM point of view. We're doing a lot of work here, and that's the next part, which is what we're calling intelligence. So intelligence is such a pretentious word. So, I want to, that's why we, actually said, is this really intelligence? I think it's really 3 dimensions in identity and access management. The other dimensions being people, process, politics, everything else. But in identity and access management, it's really core 3 dimensions. So in these dimensions, you can do many things. Now, we kind of made some of those bold, just so you understand that these are the key topics I think are moving forward rapidly. Although Gartner seems to say that it's in 5 to 10 years, I believe it's moving much faster because it's driven by requirement, right? So think about user and entity behavior analytics. Why do we have that? I mean, how many of you deal with insider threat?
Nobody.
Nobody is dealing with insider threat. Yeah, I mean, it's one of the biggest problems. Because these are people with regular access, taking your assets. So it's become a very big issue. So we did this very big project for a major pharmaceutical. They asked us to do model insider threat for them within one application.
But
So-
we are not talking, as it's there, about the personal, the individuals. As Donna has said, we are also talking about devices, entities. If your car is behaving strange,
Exactly.
you don't want to have it into another car. So
Yeah, so I know I'll save some for the next session, but I think there is you've seen the news about the first refrigerator being hacked, the first smart TV being hacked. So we are getting very fast into these realms because there is very less of that kind of security. So we're pushing those limits. So I think it's important to understand the importance of that. So the third, the last one there, I want to talk a little bit about that, is prescriptive analytics. So we're doing a lot with descriptive, we're doing a lot with predictive. We're saying, this may happen at that time, but we're not doing a lot with prescriptive. Prescriptive is when you tell the user or the administrator what is it that they should do with the problem. We're not giving that information back to them to understand it. So we need to get to that point. So this is a goal chart. I mean, I think it's a pretty good one. You can use it, in fact, in daily life. So this is, we drew this. So if you think about this, are we asking for too much? I don't think so. I mean, this is what we wanted all along, right? We wanted this. But somewhere along the line, technologies got too complicated to implement, processes got too cumbersome, and then policies, I deal with this now in IBM as part of the CIO office, is so complex. We are having wars with the policy group because the policy doesn't cater enough, or the policy is too broad, right? So we need to talk about that. So, these are pretty common things, right? So we just wanted a 360 view of what we have, the risk we bear, right? So this is what we wanted. So this, I believe, is the starting point. So I get into the details of how to make this real, which is a logical architecture. So, I don't want to bore people. If you don't want to get into it, I can go faster or slower, depending upon how you want to, do this, right? So,
but perhaps we can get back to the topic intelligence, which you had defined before, that intelligence is information, but information you usually retrieve from data, and so this is your starting point,
exactly.
I think.
Yeah. So I think Dana also talked about silos, right? So, you have identity in different silos, different data, it's all stuck there, in my opinion. And you have sometimes good view of those silos. When I talk about silos, I mean within certain systems which are pretty big, within applications which are pretty big, within, different contexts of identity there, So the first effort should be, let's, in an organization, look at these different silos and start extracting identity data from that. So when you extract identity data, you need to create this, at least a meta layer, which basically gets you to a point where, it has one common data structure that you can actually operate on, right? So this is where you, start to gain information, more information. So now this is again, like I said, logical. You could have one big data instance, or you could have multiple, depends on how you want to structure your data in an enterprise. So you have identity relationships, usage-based entity, and user entity and activity data, right? So from there, you also want the policy store. So these are the three big data stores, I would say. So within that, we want to create this layer which does a lot of correlation. You want to do dynamic searches and all these beautiful things. That is one layer. And then you want to visualize. This is where I think you would get the most benefit. Today, this visualization is very limited in the sense that, you have SIEM tools or DLP tools or IAM tools giving separate instances of this visualization. What we want to do is pull all of this together to create this beautiful identity access management risk, visualization mechanism that can cater to user, administrator, the C-level, whoever you want, right? So this is the visualization mechanism. And I'm calling it management because what I believe is if there is an active infiltration going on within your organization, you would want to block it. You would want a way to manage that. That's going to be the key aspect. So now it has several benefits, of risk monitoring, risk-based services, et cetera, et cetera. So this is, I would say, the way you get from hoping to making it real. And I believe in, at least for us in IBM, we have 500,000 people and a huge number of systems. And we have about 2,000 applications, for example. So, in an enterprise of that size, we're going to take about 5 to 10 years to actually make this all real. So we've started down the path, and it's been, like Angelica said, about 3 months since we started debating and start sharing the point of view, we're beginning to articulate and actually implement it. So this is the view of that. So not to forget, the most important part that I believe, which is going to play a key role, is the feedback mechanism, which basically gets you from all the way from providing these services to actually making an impact on several of your silos or administrative silos where you give prescriptive analytics. So that's the whole story.
And you think this might be, you said it's a logical model at the moment, but you think this might be the solution, or at least a step further to the solution, so let's test it?
Yeah. So this is what we did, and I'll go through as fast as I can, so please keep up. So we went to this organization and said, you have data, and we'll bring this data together, and then we get to a point where we identify an individual or individuals that could be potential insider threat. So this is the insider threat. So we took that instance that we created as a logical model and tested it with this. So we can apply it to several such use cases. One of them is insider threat. So where we said it's an anomaly trigger, and then we actually found the individuals that we want to see are actual, people. So it's funny that in this enterprise, we actually had metadata. So we don't know the real people, the real things that they're doing, right? So we don't know that. So we were sitting with the client and showing them this data, and they were at the edge of their seats because they realized the toxicity of this problem. Because, lucky that we didn't know because it's an HR issue, right? So, they saw this person accessing the data, accessing sensitive data 500 times. And they said, okay, where is this person located? And they figured that person was sitting in Mexico, right? So they had no visibility of this person actually doing this stuff, and then all of a sudden they're looking at this anomalous behavior. And this anomalous behavior can be tracked or monitored, and we showed them how to do that. And then we showed them all the things that you can link, all the data types, all the data silos that you could link to make it or enrich it, right? We were actually looking at just one applications, but we could tell them, look at this in 5 to 10 years, and you would see bigger benefits in the enterprise. So we showed that, and then we said, how do you manage this incident? And we showed that as well. So this is the actual test, if you will, for that framework that I described. By the way, we used machine learning to actually produce rich set of data to actually show the anomalous behavior. And I can go into this if people like it. We have a very good research team in IBM which does machine learning in identity and access management, which is what we used.
So we are now back to identity and access management, how it should like, and what we think have shown you an approach how we can get a little bit further to that than we have been in the last 15 years.
I'm determined to make it a reality in IBM.
Thank you very much.